Fire, water, or grass? It's honestly been a really long time since I said those words, and of course, you had to let me know about it in the comments. Thank you for that, by the way. I get it. You want this video. I get it. But either way, with another round of new Pokemon games added to this ever so growing franchise, and newish because, you know, I'm late to this batch of starter Pokemon, have graced us with their presence. Grookey, the mischievous chimp grass starter, Scorbunny, the rabbit Pokemon bursting with energy, and last but certainly not least, the timid water lizard Pokemon Sobble rounds up the new starter trio of the Galar region. But with that said, well, the age-old question comes around, which is, what starter Pokemon is the best choice to go with? Well, today I'm here to continue the long-running tradition my channel has by giving you guys the answer on which starter is the best to use for your playthrough of Pokemon Sword and Shield. And no, that's not the ear infection telling you anything different. God, I really hope none of y'all have an ear infection right now, cause like, I'm looking this up on Google and... I'm going to be giving you the best starter for both games in this video, so if you're worried about being left out, don't, because I'm always here for you, all of you. Except you. You're f***ing weird. You word f***. Now normally this would be the part where I introduce someone else who would be collaborating with me for the rest of this video, but here's the thing, I have no friends. So you're just gonna have to deal with my voice for today, which should be okay because, you know, I'm not the worst sounding guy.
Hey!
What? What? What do you want?
Do you need a partner for this video? You seem hella depressed.
No. I'm not depressed. You're depressed, okay? I'm not depressed. Where the hell did you even come from, huh?
I mean, I've already made like 6 best teams for Sword and Shield already, so let me just hop on. It won't kill you.
So you're just gonna ignore me and just like request to be on this video and show up out of nowhere and just be on the video? Fine, whatever. I don't have control of this channel anymore. Whatever. I don't care. I don't even upload. Whatever. It's whatever. Fine. So today, joining us on the best starter for Sword and Shield video is in fact MysticUmbreon.
Oh yeah, I also did best team for Sword and Shield number 7 over on my channel, so go check it out after this video if you want to see the best starter soldiers.
Either way, today we're going to be helping you guys make the right decision on what statistically is the best starter. Of course, there is no right or wrong decision on what starter to pick, but there definitely is a best Pokemon to pick that would benefit you the most. And in case you guys haven't seen any of the previous best starter videos, we will be taking a look at each important character's individual Pokemon and rate each starter's level of advantage or disadvantage on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being totally disadvantaged and 5 being at the best advantage.
We take a look at stats, type matchups, moves, basically everything. And we don't just take into account the gym battles and the Champions Cup, we also look at rival battles and evil organizations, since they both are prominent in the story. We also got new DLC, the Isle of Armor or Crown Tundra, so we will also be analyzing the starters' performances over there too. And as always with this series, we add more points the more times you battle an important character. For example, you battle Hop a dicklet of times, so we just use the rating system for each separate battle and add the points from there.
Just remember, there are no real opinions here, so if your favorite starter isn't technically the best, then I don't know, bro, tough shit, I got a better opinion, it's just Pokemon, I don't know. But if you could follow this handsome devil on Instagram and like my recent posts, maybe, I don't know, then of course you're going to 100% of the time always have the right opinion. All the time, just tried and tested. But either way, if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like for that YouTube algorithm, as well as subscribing with notifications on, and of course sharing this video with a friend. And with that being said, let's get started. So if you watched one of my more recent videos, being the My Team for Pokemon Sword and Shield video, also check that out please, I need money. You'll know that the starter I picked for my first journey just so happens to be the water lizard Pokemon Sobble.
Oh, water lizard, totally not f***ing basic.
Hey, you, dude. But either way, I figured why not start off with the little guy?
Now, what's interesting about this year's crop of starter Pokemon is that it's the first time since all the way back in Generation 2 that the final starters are all purely one typing. With that said, the water typing is known to be one of the most important parts of the team. So the best starter has to be Sobble, right? Well, let's take a closer look.
Now, speaking for myself personally, the beginning of the game was pretty easy for me, being that Hop stupidly picks the starter you're strong against, so it doesn't really matter here. But I will say the first two gyms provided a pretty decent challenge for the little guy, being that of course they are the grass and water gyms. We all know that Milo with his 2 Regenerator Magical Leaf grass types would destroy Sobble. But if you somehow manage to beat Milo without any additions to the team, then you also have to come up against a neutral attacking Nessa. And let me just say that Dynamax Dreadnought, especially this early in the game, is pretty scary, I guess. I don't know. He's Jason Voorhees type scary. That's some scary shit right there.
Now sure, none of them can really deal any super effective damage to you, but it's really just an annoyance to deal with, just neutral based attacks. But luckily after you get through the early part of the game, you do run into a patch where it's relatively easy to work with. Kabu's fire type Pokemon are easy work, and while you don't have any super effective stab hits against either Alistair or Bee, Inteleon, which you will have at this point in the game, has access to acrobatics through the Move, Learner, and Sucker Punch, which you should already have through Drizzile. From there, you have Opal. Woo mama. And her fairy types, which is pretty much neutral at 3. And then we have Gordy, which is a straight up easy 5 with his rock types, or Melanie and Shield with her ice types at 3. Finally, after all that, we have the last 2 gyms being Pierce and Raihan. Pierce surprisingly is pretty easy with the water type, being that you have access to the moves Acrobatics and U-Turn. Those moves take care of his Scrafty, Malamar, and Obstagoon, with literally nothing for them to counter. That only leaves you with Skuntank to deal with, which shouldn't be that big of a deal. With Raihan, I'd say choosing Sobble will provide you with the easiest battle here. It definitely goes through his Sandaconda and Gigalith, and if you want to add an ice move to Inteleon, you can take out Flygon pretty easily with Ice Beam. And then there, that only leaves his Gigantamax Pokemon, which can cause problems, but you take out the other 3 of his Pokemon easily.
And with these rival battles, by far the toughest of them has to be Marnie. I say this because not only do you have to deal with Morpeko, her ace, which is an electric type, but Croagunk and eventually Toxicroak has the dry skin ability, so your stab attacks won't do anything. Now, of course, it does get easier as the game progresses with you gaining access to countering moves, but once you get to the league, sure, you have Acrobatics and U-Turn for Toxicroak, Scrafty, and Liepard, but you don't have an answer for her 2 best Pokemon, which are her most threatening. On the other hand, though, you don't have to battle her as much as someone like Bede, which luckily you have a very easy time with. Throughout the game, you battle him a total of 5 times, if you're counting the aftergame, and only at the last 2 battles does he present any sort of problem. Because luckily for the first 3 battles, all of his Pokemon are pure Psychic types, which make them easily weak to moves like Sucker Punch or U-Turn. The last 2 battles do get a bit more difficult though, with all of Bede's Pokemon eventually becoming part Fairy, but it's not really an issue since the majority of the time it's easy to beat him. That leaves of course Hop, which Sobble is kind of on the neutral side here, since the first 4 battles all he has is the starter you're strong against, Rookidee, and Wooloo. From there, he adds a bunch of new Pokemon to his team. In the next 2 battles, not really staying consistent, the most difficult of them being, of course, Toxel, Boltund, and Trevenant, but he balances it out by adding Silicobra and Heatmore. After that, though, his team gets back to being more consistent, having a Dobull, Corviknight, Pinscher, and Pinsirchin, Handkerchief, I don't know, bro. Whatever you want to call this stupid thing, Snorlax, Cramorant, and for this case, Cinderace. Again, this is just really neutral here. At the end though, he does add a Zamazenta or Zacian, which again, doesn't actually really do much for change, so there you go.
And now that we've got the rivals and gym winners out of the way, we have of course one more thing to talk about before the Champions Cup, that being the evil teams. Now, primarily the Marco Goons and Team Yell luckily stick to one type, but since you faced them multiple times, we took 6 of the most common Pokemon from Team Yell and 4 from the Macro Goons, and gave each a rating of efficiency. Early on, Sobble does not get any Bug-type moves, so Pokemon like Zigzagoon and Nickit stay on the neutral side. But the rest of the way, Inteleon pretty much wrecks Team Yell, as much as I hate to admit it. As for the Macros, they use a lot of Steel types, so the only really effective time to use Sobble would probably have to be against Steelix. But of course, those aren't the only people you have to deal with. You've also got people like Oleana and Chairman Rose. Rose is pretty easy to talk about since he has a mono still team, but you do have to worry about his dumb Ferrothorn and a wild charge Klinklang, which I have no idea how the heck that gets that, but so that Inteleon is kind of at a disadvantage. Oleana is a bit harder to pinpoint. Her team is pretty diverse, but I'd say, or there's a weakness to Pokemon like Serena, it gets balanced out against Pokemon like Salazzle, and the rest of her team pretty much goes even, or Inteleon has a slight advantage over.
Now that we got all of that out of the way, what about the Champions Cup? Well, luckily it's all just a bunch of rematches with characters such as Marnie, Hop, Bede, which we already covered. But in the finals, you fight Nessa, Bee, or Alistair, and Raihan, depending on which game you choose. And the teams really don't actually change that much. For Nessa, Inteleon still pretty much goes even, Bee and Alistair still have those weaknesses to Flying and Dark, and Raihan adds fire types along with more dragons, so Ice Beam will actually be very useful here. And of course, at the end of the road, we have to fight the champion Leon, who pretty much goes even here. It kind of struggles against Pokemon like Haxorus and Rillaboom, but completely destroys Charizard and Rhyperior, while also having a slight advantage with Dark-type moves on Dragapult.
So that pretty much covers everything for the main game. Hey, shut up, I'm trying to do some shit. So that pretty much covers everything for the main game. But what about the DLC? In the Isle of Armor part of the expansion pass, there are not really any super important battles at all. You literally only have to battle Clara or Avery depending on the game, and Mustard twice. Still don't know where his brother Ketchup comes to this story, but whatever.
Oh god, I dropped out of college for this.
The rest of the battles require you to only use Cubfu, and that's all. Seriously, this part of the DLC wasn't much. But with that in mind, Inteleon pretty much goes even with Clara's poison types, has a slight advantage over Avery psychic types if you have Dark Pulse, and finally goes even with Ketchup's versatile team. I mean, dang it, I messed up again. Moving on to Crown Tundra, there's even less battles out there than Isle of Armor. You battle Peony once, and 3 specific legendary Pokemon. Now for Peony, his Copperajah and Aggron aren't that much of an issue, since it goes even with Copperajah, and has an obvious advantage to Aggron. As for the Calyrex battles, this Pokemon does struggle against its grass moves, but if you have Ice Beam, you can counter it. As for the Ghost and Ice forms, they both do have grass coverage, but it loses its stab. So I would say it goes even or at a slight advantage, since you can counter both of Dark Pulse, and the Ghost form is quad weak to that. As for the horses, Glacier goes even, and Spectre is at a slight advantage at 4.
Overall, we're gonna say that Sobble is a very solid choice for a starter. There's not much in either game where it struggles besides in the beginning, but after that, it's pretty much smooth sailing throughout the game, going even or having a slight advantage. But is that enough to make it the best starter in the region? Well, let's take a look at the others.
Well, Eryizo, since we covered the starter that you chose for your journey first, can we do mine next?
No. Now, when it comes to
Okay,
the chimp
Dick.
Pokemon Grookey, I will say it definitely has a better start going even with Milo and completely destroying Nessa. And what's great about this Pokemon is that from the jump, it also gets access to fighting type moves. And although you can only learn them through TM, it's definitely a big help against people like the Macro Goons, Team Yell, Piers, Marnie, Gordy, Chairman Rose. There's a lot of people weak to fighting. And even when it comes to Hop, which, by the way, you literally have to be the devil to name your kid that. Having that one move to take out his Double is just very handy to have. Along with that, the Dark-type moves that Inteleon gets access to also applies for Rillaboom, as he learns at level 24 the move Knockoff, so if you're playing Shield and don't have to fight Bee, Alistair will not be that much of a problem. Not to mention that Grass pretty much handles almost the same things Water can, like Raihan's Rock types.
But as usual with the grass typing, it always is kind of held back starter-wise because of the fact that it just has so many weaknesses compared to the other 2 types. Of course, there's Kabu, Melanie, Leon's Charizard, Oleana, and not to mention, it by far struggles the most against Eternatus. So while it does definitely have some major strengths and a good move pool, it does struggle against some very, very tough opponents. Like, seriously, have fun against Leon. That's 2 fire types you have to deal with. Add that along with the fact that it will struggle the most against Clara's poison types, Avery psychic types, Glacier, and the Ice Rider form. Yeah, it's not the most fun time in the DLC either.
But you take the good with the bad with this Pokemon, and while those things are a problem, having a very strong advantage against consistent opposition like the evil teams definitely helps it on the scorecard. But is that enough to give it the title as the best starter in Sword and Shield? Well, let's take a look at our final option.
And last, but certainly not least, we have everyone's favorite striker Pokemon, Cinderace. Now, here's the thing about Scorbunny. It's very, very good. First off, the fire typing is very strong. It can breeze through people like Milo, Melanie, Chairman Rose, the Macro Goons, and have an advantage against Opal, and eventually beat its fairy types. On top of that, he beats Rillaboom to the punch with fighting type moves, getting access to double kick as early as level 12. That means Hop early on is a complete wash. Nessa's ace isn't as tough as it normally would be. Pierce, Team Yell, and Marnie are no problems. And all of a sudden, you have a chance against Raihan and Gordy's Pokemon.
And we're not done here, man. This Pokemon's move pool is actually insane. Like, it's making me want to... You know what I'm saying? No. I don't. I really don't. What the are you saying, bro? You can also gain access to moves like Zen Headbutt and Electro Ball, and you can get them relatively early in the game, so big advantage against B and Nessa. I mean, bruh, this thing even gets bounce. Freaking bounce! The one where you jump high and you come down, it's a flying move. You get bounce, bro.
That said though, unfortunately Dark-type moves aren't really in its repertoire, so no advantage against Alistair, which does suck since you battle him twice. And while yes, there is a counter for a lot of his weaknesses in-game, they aren't stab attacks. And of course, for the opposition it is. So Nessa, Gordy, Raihan, and Eternatus will be a problem no matter what. But I'm just gonna outright say, since it really is no competition here, Cinderace is by far the best Pokemon in both games. And I've pretty much done this same exact video 6 times. That's right, I said it. Scorbunny is the optimal starter choice for both Pokemon Sword and Shield. The reason for this is simply because of the fact that its move pool is just better than the other 2 starters.
I mean, seriously, there was no important battle we could justify giving it a 1 to because of the fact that Cinderace can counter them as well. Combine that with the fact that timing also plays a very important role in this Pokemon. Like, for example, he gets fighting type moves really early on, so battles against Hop and Team Yell are a literal breeze. Even if you wanted to add the post-game to this argument, which we did for posterity, there is no Pokemon we can say you can't win with using Cinderace. Okay, I'll give you Dynamax Haxorus and maybe Dynamax Torkoal, but Conk and Gyarados you definitely have counters for. In fact, the DLC actually makes it even easier for Cinderace since you have to fight Ice types, Calyrex, more Steel Pokemon, and even Clara has a fair bit of bugs. So there you have it, guys. After weeks, scratch that, months, maybe even a year of research, the best starter in Pokemon Sword and Shield is Scorbunny. So you can stop asking me for this video now, okay? Thank God. Thank God this video's over. Thank God.
When's best starter for Diamond and Pearl Remix, Eryizo?
Oh, no, you are, no. They're not. Surely they're not. Oh my God. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and let me know in the comments section below. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and become an Eryizo today. I would also like to personally thank my boy Mystic for joining me today. So, you know, everyone give him a round of applause again. Yes, golf clap this bitch. Golf clap for him. Fucking do it. Thank you. Go ahead, Mystic.
Hey, you know what, man? It was cool being on your channel after 2 years. But yeah, go check out Best Team for Sword and Shield number 7. You can click the I card in the top right corner or N card on the left.
And if you're here from Mystic's channel and want to see more content from me because you're tired of him, and I'm just better, you know, the best of all time, greatest PokeTuber ever, always uploads on time and on schedule, click the other annotation on the right. And with that being said, I will see you guys next time or on Mystic's channel.
Oh, hey, no, we're not ending on...